And welcome to another edition of the ArtCast. I'm your host, Art Shimko, coming to you from Austin, Texas. It's May 28th, 2020, episode 10. And we're going to be discussing the horrific and unnecessary death of George Floyd. Another case of police brutality at its worst, like it's never at its best anyway, but at its worst because a 46-year-old man is dead now when all the police had to do was just take him down to the station and book him for what they were arresting him for. I'm sure many of you have heard the news by now. It happened Monday evening in Minneapolis. 46-year-old George Floyd, the security guard for a local bistro. He went to a local deli and attempted to make a purchase allegedly with a counterfeit $20 bill. And when it was red flagged, he left the business, the delicatessen, and the police were called for from what the store said, it was a basic protocol. The police arrived. They made an arrest with George Floyd. They initially claimed that he was resisting arrest, and they attempted to put him in the back of the police truck. And then when that didn't work, it led to Floyd being pinned down onto the street, onto the asphalt, right behind the police truck by one of the officers. The officer had his knee on the neck of George Floyd. And he kept his knee on his neck from whatever, between 5 to 8 minutes straight. Someone, a relative of, or I guess one of the employees of the deli, came out telling the officer not to take his knee off Floyd's neck. Floyd was pleading for his life, saying he couldn't breathe. Please, 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 get off of me. He was pleading for his mother who had passed away 2 years ago. Very, very, extremely difficult, horrific, disgusting scene. I've seen the video. I've seen the photos. I've seen the videos. New surveillance footage had been released, and it contradicted the initial reports about George Floyd resisting arrest. If you've seen the videos, and they're all over the media outlets online, he's not resisting arrest. He's at one point he's cuffed. He's sitting on the ground, and then the officers pick him up, and they walk him to the back of the police truck. He was saying that he didn't want to get back in there because he was feeling claustrophobic, and to me, that is not resisting arrest of any sort. That is you're telling the officer, hey, I have a problem. I'm going to feel claustrophobic. It's going to could lead to more problems and such. But none of it is any resistance. And from there, that's where the moment happened, where he was pinned on the ground with a knee to the neck, and he died. He was choked out. Did not have to fucking happen. I work at a retail store. I currently don't, because with the pandemic, the shop is still closed. But come across, I check large bills a lot, and mark it off with this little marker thing, and then you put it to the light, and if it's a dark color, the bill's a fake. And I haven't had to call the police about that. I usually, take the item away, give the bill back to the person and say this is a fake and tell them to leave. If an incident escalates, then yes, I will try to handle it best I can before I call the police to handle it. This store, they were following their protocol, but even they were, even members of that store were telling the officer not to, to take the knee off the guy's neck, off of Floyd's neck. They didn't want this guy to die. You figure the cops are going to come down, maybe talk to the guy, maybe arrest not even happen, just discuss what the deal is and just say don't come back to this business anymore. That would be more reasonable. If you feel you have to arrest the person, then so be it, but you go through the protocol. Why this man had to be pinned down and be killed by this officer, Minneapolis officer, why he had to resort to this tactic is so fucking beyond me and beyond a majority of this country. Anybody who's seen this video, this screams, this echoes the Eric Garner case in Staten Island 6 years ago, where he was choked out by an officer for selling cigarettes out on the street. Again, an arrestable offense? Sure. If you feel you need to do more than just tell this person, don't do this anymore. If I see you here again, then I'm going to arrest you. No. They immediately go to cuff the guy. And he pulled his arm back. Okay, he resists. Okay, so now you're going to arrest him for resisting arrest. But the officer put his fucking hands around the guy's neck, wrestled him down, choked him out. Again, I can't breathe. And eventually that guy lost his job and then, cried about it. These officers, there were 4 officers on the scene. They've all been fired from the Minneapolis Police Department. And the mayor of Minneapolis, I was just watching a video of him earlier, and he's calling for the arrest of the officer who committed the crime, the murder of George Floyd, Jacob Fry. He had replied saying it was the right call that the officers were fired. But then he went a step further 2 days later on May 27th when he had a press conference and said if most people, particularly people of color, had done what a police officer did late Monday, they'd already be behind bars. That's why today I am calling for Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman to charge the arresting officer in this case. So I watched a portion of that press conference, and we'll see. I think all 4 of them should be arrested. 2 of the officers, according to the Grio.com website, have had previous use of force complaints. I looked around elsewhere and I did not see the identity of all 4 officers, but this website has the name of at least 2 of the officers that are seen on the video. One of them who's was talking with bystanders and was, they're probably telling him, "Hey, tell your partner to stop choking out this man on the ground." And the officer who had his knee on Floyd's neck is named Derek Chauvin. I guess that's how you say his name. He's been involved And in a couple instances, once where he was partnered with another officer who had shot a guy who allegedly pulled a gun on police, and he was also around for. He'd also shot another person in the abdomen when he tried to grab someone's gun. So, he's already been involved in some controversial and insane incidents, and so, but this is just it sucks. That this is fucking bullshit again. This is all too common. And have police officers killed white folks? Have they killed Hispanic folks? Have they killed Asian folks? Have they killed other, people of other races and ethnicities? Sure, I'm sure they're out there. But what we've seen in recent times, like that psycho piece of shit son of a bitch, was it in South Carolina where he went into the church and shot up all the people, all the congregation? It's like 9 people in there, all black. And what did they do? They cuff him, they walk him out, they place him in the car, they put their hand on top of his head so he doesn't bump his precious little head on top of the fucking opening of the fucking car door. He wanted McDonald's or Burger King, so they actually stopped and fucking got him that shit. This guy down here, it was in Texas. Was it El Paso? He went into a Walmart and he was targeting Hispanics and Latinos, as he said. Fucking white douchebag, who's some crying little incel dope who trolls online or does whatever, and then he has this agenda. I'm gonna go out and shoot up this place. And again, there he is, photo of him, cuffed, walked to the police car. Now, I'm not saying that these guys should have been killed. What I wanted is these to have this kind of treatment across the board. Yeah, George Floyd. I'm sorry, George Floyd. I apologize. George Floyd. He's trying to pay for something with a fake fucking bill. Is that the same as going into a Walmart or going into a nightclub or going into a school or in any type of place where there are gatherings of people and unload ammo because you have some racist fucking notion in your head or you can't get laid or both? We're asking for the treatment across the board. This guy, if anything, if at the worst, Floyd should have been taken to jail and in a jail cell for however many hours until he's bailed out or can make bail, whatever. I mean, it's a minor thing. I mean, I'm not trying to, whatever you want to say, downplay, but honestly, it's something where you can just spend a couple hours in jail, whatever, and get bailed, whatever, and then you'll have your court date. Whatever goes from there, you pay a fine, you have to do a bit more jail time, whatever it is. That's the worst that should have happened to him. Not getting fucking choked out by a garbage human being who thought, this is what I need to do to keep this man. I mean, did he not think? I mean, I know there's other ways to hold a suspect down. I mean, I read a post from an officer who said that the training techniques do not parallel with what this guy did to Floyd. There's ways to restrain someone. I've seen it when I was in Philadelphia. There was a guy down on the ground. He wasn't choking. He wasn't bleeding for life. He was just down. The guy had he had his whatever, maybe, he maybe had his leg on his shoulder or his back, but he wasn't like choking the guy. Like the guy was down, and the guy was just like that, like just didn't say anything. I don't know if I used the word content, but he wasn't pleading for his life. He wasn't like, help me. Everybody walking around was just like, oh, this guy's he's being restrained for whatever reason, being held until police come, whatever. I don't know what he, committed, what the crime was. But at least he was restrained in a way where this guy's most likely gonna still be alive enough to get down to taken down to the station or the precinct and booked and charged, whatever. Yeah, there's riots and looting in Minneapolis. The governor of Minnesota, he's called on the National Guard as of a half hour ago, maybe 40 minutes ago. I read that online. It's now 5:31 p.m. Central Daylight Time on Thursday evening. So that came out, at least a half hour ago, I'd say. And, there's mixed feelings about that. Minneapolis, the city has said they've used and strained all their resources they can to help keep the peace and help, keep order and to restore order as best they can. I've seen a few photos. I haven't seen any video footage, but I've seen how cities have looked in the past when this kind of thing has happened. So there's a mixed feeling with bringing the National Guard in. People think, well, okay, this will be extra help and it's going to bring peace as best as possible to this situation. And other people think it's going to make it worse and people are going to be more resistant. And when they see that type of presence, we'll just have to see how that transpires. But this way, the way officers are doing this kind of shit, it's too commonplace. We had that thing in Houston, or was it Houston, where the officer went into the apartment and she said she went into the wrong apartment because her apartment was above. She went to the apartment and saw this black man in there. He's his resident. That's his apartment. She thought he broke in. He's sitting there. She shoots him, and then says, "Oh, I thought I was in my apartment. My apartment's above." I mean, I know these guys work long hours and stress levels, whatever, but to be that off? I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theory type, but that sounded way too fucking weird. I mean, don't they have bunks at the precinct? Fucking lay down and take a nap. Refresh yourself or whatever. I don't know. That was another extremely unnecessary thing to happen. Oh, it was a mistake. Yeah, it's a fucking mistake. Me fucking, accidentally ripping a shirt or slipping on something, or burning something when you cook. That's a fucking mistake. Not going into an apartment and shooting a guy who lives there and says, "Oh, I thought that was my apartment." And people are, for years and years and years and years, even before Rodney King, even before NWA said something, people have been like, dealing with this shit, with how officers treat certain communities and minorities. Now, yes, there are good ones. As I said, I work in a heavily tourist area in downtown Austin, and on the weekends the streets are closed and there's police presence everywhere, and I'm happy to have those cops out there. I'm happy because I've seen how they are, and for the most part they're standing there, they're keeping the peace. I mean, if they have to, you'll see that they're really like not try to have to make an arrest. They'll talk to someone, they'll do whatever, but if they have to, I've seen them cuff people. And because these people are fucking rowdy, drunk, getting in fights, yelling and shit. I saw this girl, her friend got arrested, and she was mouthing off at the officer, and the officer was like, you need to get away from me right now. Unless you want to get arrested, you need to just get away, and like he was doing his best to calm the situation down and diffuse things and be like, hey, you don't want to be arrested either. Like, get away from me and you can get your friend later. Like, I'm doing my protocol. And I've had a few officers stop into the store. I'm happy to, I'll give them a drink or whatever they want, and I'm happy to have their presence in there for a bit. And when I lock up the shop at the end of the night, closing time, and I'm walking down 6th Street to the bus stop, I see all the officers at each intersection. And I say, thank you, officers, thank you. And they'll say, you're welcome, or thank you too back. I've had helpful officers. I've also had incidents with officers that were not pleasant at all, particularly with the Barrington, New Jersey Police Department. They're a bunch of fucking goddamn white racists too. And I will say that. I was very fortunate not to have any kind of incident like with an Eric Garner or a George Floyd or any other similar cases like that. But I was extremely harassed by 2 officers of the Barrington Police Department in New Jersey when I lived there in the late 90s and early 2000s. Twice I was stopped just walking down the sidewalk to my apartment. I had to walk from my apartment to a convenience store to get groceries. And twice I was stopped. One time, the one officer claimed I looked like a, quote, Mexican guy that they were looking for. Profiling at his best, right? And then I had another guy, a younger guy, just stop me. At least the first guy was trying to be friendly, fake his way being friendly. This second guy was a young, pumped up piece of garbage who was just looking for something to do because it's a Saturday afternoon and there's nothing to do in Barrington because it's a small little 1 mile stretch of a town. And this guy had to look at my ID so many times and ask where I lived and what am I doing here and what's going on and what, and and I have a carton of eggs in my fucking hand. And this fucking Nazi motherfucker is asking me plain 20 questions with me. And then I'm walking back and I swear to God, he veers his car like right next to me. Oh, I need to see your identification again. And I complied because I don't want to get assaulted or anything worse by this incel Poindexter piece of shit. That'd be a horrific death, knowing that you were killed off by some pipsqueak douchebag who's playing Rambo with his badge and his gun. So, I don't want to make this about me a lot, but I want to at least express why I have the feelings I do towards police, where I know there's good ones, but man, like sometimes I don't trust the fuck out of them. And when I watch these stories, if I veer towards a bit one side, because of course they say benefit of the doubt and you have to hear both sides. The fucking police department put out a statement saying that he suffered from like a medical injury or a medical incident, whatever it was. Yeah, caused by one of your fucking officers. The FBI is going to look into this, and the Minnesota Bureau of Investigation, whatever their investigation organization, they're going to look into this. Because now that more footage is coming out, and it's what witnesses, it's parallel and compliant with what the witnesses had said. Everyone was horrific who witnessed this in person. Especially when you hear a man pleading for his life. Please, please, please. I can't breathe. My stomach hurts. You're not supposed, you restrain the guy, the suspect, but you don't fucking torture the shit out of him, right? You want to take tactics from how they do things in the Middle East with whatever law enforcement they have. Problem is, it only complies to certain people. Over there, it complies to everybody. Doesn't matter what you are, man, woman, child, whatever. If you come do some kind of crime, you're gonna pay for it. Now you could say, well, there's not, as diverse, whatever ethnicity there, but the point being, as I said earlier, we need to streamline this treatment of suspects. Sure, they should be arrested. Sure, they should be, if need be, they should be arrested, booked, jailed. But, you don't punch a suspect in the face. This isn't fucking Hollywood. This isn't Lethal Weapon. This isn't Clint Eastwood movies. This isn't Dirty Harry shit. And you have younger guys going into the academy, or you have guys transferring from other cities to like smaller cities and towns because administrations and mayors are like, hey, we need to clean up this. Well, I need to clean up my small city. I'm gonna recruit cops from the big cities, and then they use that big city mentality in a small town or small city. It's fucking trouble, brother. Fucking trouble. I don't know how much, more can go on about this, man. It just sucks. We got to figure out a way to, is it ever going to end? You want to, but there's things in life that you just feel like will never end. But you just have to do your best to control it. Will racism ever end? Will murder ever end? Will hatred ever end? Will, shit like this ever end? Who knows? Probably not. But we have to fix this system as best as we can. We have to, retrain the culture, however it may be. Because there's guys out there, there's law enforcement people that are like, fuck, when they see this. And they're like, and there's a lot of them, I'm sure, that are like, I don't want to be associated with that. And also another thing, man, like that this kind of like, fraternity, whatever, blue wall, I don't know what it is, but it's like that one of the officers should have been like, hey, man, that's enough. Like if you had his knee on there for like a minute or two, well, even at 2 minutes, like just imagine 2 minutes. 1 minute's enough. Don't go by the number, but like the actual amount of time, man. 2 minutes, that's agonizing already enough, I'm sure. And like that's when one of those three officers should have been like, hey, man, all right, ease up, like that's it, like just let and then pick him back up and cuff him. Try to get him back in the truck or whatever. But you don't fucking kill the guy. Did he not think 8 minutes was a long time? He just was there like, I don't care. I'm just holding this guy down. He could hear the guy. And then he finally stopped saying stuff. And then he's, they said he's bleeding out his nose. You just look at him, you could just tell that he was done. Shit was fucking unnecessary. My heart goes out to George Floyd and his family. I'm so sorry about how this went down. And to his friends and family, the guy's from Houston. He was a star athlete. He was a hip hop artist. Everything you read about him was wonderful. It seemed like security guard was always like his main gig, because he'd done that kind of work in Houston, I guess, as well. All over a fucking counterfeit $20 bill. Just kick the guy out, and if you feel the need that you have to call the police, sure, because you have that protocol. But those deli people, they didn't know those cops were gonna come down and do that. They were just following the protocol, They want to see justice for him as well, and they want to see this way police operate, this police brutality shit, to fucking be done. And I'm not calling for any harm towards police officers, except for being brought to justice if need be and necessary. Put this guy on trial if you get enough more evidence. I don't know how much more you need. And if any police, but if any of his fellow officers protect him, that's worse too. Don't protect this guy. You want to have that that reputation. Do you care that these 4 guys were involved in this fucking bullshit tragedy? I mean, come on now. I just want to see justice served. I'm not calling for any harm towards these guys or anything. But if they pull shit like this, they gotta pay, and they gotta be and it's got to be seen as examples towards other law enforcement. This is what fucking happens, man. None of this protection shit. None of this fucking hide it under because you're the law and you can manipulate and enforce and whatever and this and that, however it works. You have the fucking power, man. And it's getting corrupt by the day with things like this. I don't care about repeating it. George Floyd should not have died. He should not have died. He should not have been put in that position. Watch the videos. They're there, People want to talk about fake news and how things were reported. Besides the eyewitnesses that were there and videos that were taken by people on the street. There's store surveillance footage. There's dash cam footage. There's dash cam footage where they show him. They show that they're trying to put him in to the back of the truck, and he's like, that's when he's probably I'm sure he's saying, no, please, I'm claustrophobic. I this is too small of a space. I can't do this. And they're getting all like, they're to them they're probably thinking, oh, he's resisting. I mean, there's people that have done worse, that have gotten off less, and I don't know why that is. You'll point at the skin color, you'll point at the community, you'll point at the background, and even those things don't comply at times to the perception of the person. We need to fucking figure this out. How? If there's discussions between the law enforcement and the communities, that's always something to start at least. As I said, I'm always, I talk to the officers once in a while when I'm down there at work downtown. And I'm happy to have a good repertoire with them. And I'm happy when they're standing in front of my shop on Friday nights and Saturday nights and such, when they close off the streets and all these crowds are out there and some rowdy shit can happen. Believe me, as I said earlier, I had good experiences with cops when I was in Jersey and Philly, and I had bad ones, particularly those shitty ones in Barrington, New Jersey, and that sticks. And as I said, I'm fortunate, very fortunate, not to have had that escalate into something that would have been fatal or close to it. But it still leaves enough of a scar for me to be when I see shit like this, I'm immediately here we fucking go again. So I don't want to hear shit about well, gee, Art, post some stuff about positive stuff that cops do. Well, because you don't tell me what to do, and I'm not gonna go into no propaganda shit. Because people that are gonna do that will say, well, I'm just gonna post that you're basically doing propaganda. You're gonna ignore the shit that they do, or you're gonna sit there and say, well, the shit that they go through and the shit they have to deal with, yes, it is an extremely heavy and dangerous job. A certain breed wants to go into it, but also certain people go into it where you're like, oh man, I don't know if that's the right person to go into it. Maybe psychological testing they gotta do more, but but at the same time, they want to get as many cops out on the street. So they're gonna put them through whatever, a condensed course, or they're gonna, let things fly because they're well, we need bodies. We need bodies out there, in uniform. And if you're willing to do it, all right, we'll not to say they're gonna cheat them through, but I always felt that I don't know what maybe I'll have to look at it. I don't know what the psychological testing is and how vast it is. how unabridged it is. It maybe depends on what city, what jurisdiction you're going to be going in. I'm sure, I don't know if it would be the same if you're going to be a police officer in New York City as opposed to being a police officer in like Des Moines. Like, would those psychological tests be the same? I mean, you're going to be dealing with different situations, but you're going to be dealing with similar ones as well. Maybe in different capacities, different intensities. But the bottom line is, the culture just has to change more and more. People have to look at this and say, we need to change this shit. We need to really figure this out more. We don't need any more fucking people saying, well, what did he do? What did he do? Maybe, what did he, maybe he deserved this and that. And that's all fucking racist horse shit, ignorant horse shit, especially when the video footage is out there. This man did not resist arrest. And even if he did, he still shouldn't have been deserved to be killed. That's the thing. Resisting arrest, you just fucking get the guy, downtown, arrested and booked. If he's resisting arrest, that's not a reason to fucking kill him. So, we're gonna have to see how this goes, and how long Minneapolis is gonna be in destruction mode, and what's gonna come out in the aftermath. What's gonna happen with these officers? Are all 4 of them gonna be tried, or at least the one's gonna be tried? Is it gonna be in Minneapolis? Is it gonna be in Minnesota? Is it gonna be in that city? They better, they're not going to pull a fucking Rodney King where they're going to put them, that juror, that get him, get the case in the jury in like another county where those people were assumingly people could be like, well, whatever. But this is much more of an extreme case. Not to discount Rodney King. That was an extremely horrible, atrocious thing. We finally had gotten to see it on video. It's something that probably had happened, probably most likely had happened so many times. And finally America had seen it. And we'll have to see if charges are even brought, how, what the investigations are going to conclude with. But, obviously it's not going to bring George Floyd back, but he can't die in vain. He can't be just another fucking police brutality, fatality. It's another horribly unfortunate death to happen, but you always want to hope that this will be the one where people will say, fuck, this is it. We fucking have to really figure this shit out. And I don't know. I really hope that things can be figured out. Whatever. It fucking sucks. It really does. So, and on that note, I'm going to end this episode of the ArtCast. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon.